Thank you everybody for being here. Thank you again to everybody who organizes this. I'm quite lucky. This is my second time at Brockton, and the first time was back in 2009 with my debut novel, Triptych. I think you were actually my very first public reading. Ooh! So here I am again with book number 11. Yeah. I'm shocked. People are still buying them. So I am here to talk about Time and Tide, which came out last November. And I will tell you a little bit about this book. Everybody else has told a little bit about the book, so I'll tell a little bit. I came up with this idea in 2011 when I was traveling in England. I was headed over to Wales to do some BBC stuff, and I was like, well, I'm a Janeite. I have to go to Chawton Cottage. I have to go to Bath. Even though Jane hated Bath, and we all associate Jane Austen with Bath, I have to go. And while I was at the Jane Austen Center, for those of you who don't know, we have vanishingly few of Jane Austen's surviving personal letters, because her sister, Cassandra, depending on how you want to pronounce it, upon her death, burnt about 3,000. And the writers in the room are like, oh my God, the processes, we've lost the insight. But Cassandra did it because at the end of her life, Jane was starting to become known. She published anonymously originally, but by the time Emma came out, it was an open secret that Jane Austen was the lady who was writing these books. And Jane did not want to be famous. She did not want to be a figure of public ridicule. And Fanny Bryce's letters had been published a couple years prior and torn apart by the public. And Cassandra knew that Jane Austen's letters, which were filled with her witticisms about family members and moaning about their money troubles, they were just like, she was just like, let me circumvent this, let me just protect my sister. And she burned all these letters. So there's very few that still survive. And some of the ones that survive are ones that were written to Jane Austen's best friend, Martha Lloyd. None of you have heard of Martha Lloyd because nobody talks about Martha Lloyd. But Martha Lloyd was Jane Austen's best friend her whole life. And Martha Lloyd grew up next to the Austens. And when Martha's sisters married and her father passed away and then her mother passed away, Martha had no husband, no children to look after her, so she moved in with the Austen ladies after their father died. And then when they got into financial troubles and they had to move into cheaper accommodation, Martha went with them. And then when they had to move again to cheaper accommodations, Martha went with them. And then when Jane Austen's brother finally inherited the knight's fortune and they got to move into Chawton Cottage, Martha went with them. And then when Jane Austen was proposed to, and she could have had a really, really nice life with a vaguely handsome suitor who was, 10 years younger than her, but was a good family friend, she didn't. She said yes in the evening and no thank you in the morning. And we don't really know what happened overnight. People say, oh, Cassandra said to her, you're such a good writer, you have to give that up. If you were the Mistress of Many Down, if you were, his name was Bigwither. If you were Mrs. Bigwither, you'd have to be a great lady in the county. You'd never get a chance to write. And don't you believe in your own stories? And then Jane said, no, but what if there was another reason? And then Jane Austen passed away at age 41 of what people kind of think is Hodgkin's disease, but they're not sure. And only then did Martha marry Jane Austen's little brother, who then became the Admiral of Halifax, and they actually lived in a house in Halifax. So I am not an Austen. I don't know the Austen family secrets. I don't know what the Austen family wants to share or not share. But the storyteller in me was like, oh, and they were roommates? So I came up with the idea for Time and Tide. I wanted to tell a story about what it meant to be a woman writer in the Regency era, what you had to give up, like financial security, like anonymity, like agency. Back then you had to sell your entire book. So you didn't get to keep copyright. You didn't really get royalties. You just sold your book. And then all the time it would take to write, the fact that between Martha, Mrs. Austen, and Cassandra, Jane only had like 2 or 3 chores in the house, and everybody did everything else. So Jane the genius could sit in the parlor and write. So who had to sacrifice what? So Jane Austen, as we know her, could exist. I wanted to write about what it meant to be a woman writer back then. But I also wanted to talk about when they were roommates. And then I decided to fictionalize it. And then I thought, hey, I like time travel stories. Why not do one of those too? So this story, my narrator is also called Sam. And Sam is a disaster bisexual from 2025 who has graduated university with a degree in gender studies and gender activism and equality, or activism. I said that word already. And she's supposed to go on holiday with her girlfriend, and when they get back, her girlfriend's going to come out to her family. That's the whole plan. The girlfriend abandons her at Pearson, says, I can't do this, I can't come out, I can't do that to my mother, you go without me. So Sam, in a rage, decides to go on their holiday alone. The plane crashes halfway across the Atlantic, and she lands in the ocean, and somehow, and no, I don't explain it, wakes up in the middle of the Battle of Trafalgar in 1805, where she's rescued by a man named Francis. Good enough. And he eventually figures out that she's a time traveler, although they don't know how to get her back. And he has installed her with his sisters and his mother, so she can be taken care of because she has no man to protect her and no identity papers to vouch for and no money. So we're picking up halfway through the book where Sam has met and fallen in love with Francis's sister Margaret, who is my Jane Austen analogous character. Sam has given her cell phone to Francis to sell so he can make money, so she can have some income. And now they're discussing that. As I was still in my PJs, Fenton, not Francis, stood carefully outside the door. Eliza bid me adieu and kissed him sweetly on her way out. Fenton lingered just long enough to tell me that he'd managed to sell my own smartphone for an obscene amount of clink to a fascinated science kook in London. It was far more than I ever could have earned in prizes, he said. More than enough for my needs. I think perhaps you are very proud, Samantha, but I do beg you to take this along with my deepest thanks. He held out a leather pouch that clinked softly when I accepted it. You know, I don't know what this is worth, I told him. It's enough to purchase some clothing of your own, to pay for your share of the meals and the carriages until the wedding, and for several months of your lodging with my sisters and mother. It will tide you over comfortably. I could give you more if you desire. This is enough. As soon as I start teaching, I will be self-sufficient. It was your little device, after all. It was a gift, Fenton. Shut up and accept it. He dimpled at me. I do so enjoy your turns of phrase. I snorted. Right. Now, get out. I'm practically naked. Luckily, then, that I have managed to wheedle a spare dress out of Miss Gale's lady's maid, Daisy, that's Margaret, said, appearing over Fenton's shoulder. You are dismissed, Bird. Aye, aye, Commodore, Fenton said, tossing off a rigid salute and marching away like a toy soldier. Our room is turned into the town square. I stepped aside so Daisy could come in. Feels like everybody's dropped by today. Nearly everyone, Daisy said with a sarcastic twist. The linen draper has arrived downstairs. I could invite him up, so should you so desire. Yeah, I'll pass. I skimmed out of my dressing gown. What is a linen draper? Daisy gave me another of those pinning me to a corkboard looks before shaking her head a little in disbelief. A sever of cloth. Here is a chemise for you. Quick, now turn and I shall tie off your stays and dress. The dress itself was taupe, made of serviceable cotton, and printed with a rolling pattern of dark brown and mustard yellow daffodils. As she helped me, she lingered at the nape of my neck, the soft skin inside my elbow, the vulnerable tops of my feet as she checked the length. I tensed to suppress a shiver. She didn't mean it like that. Oh, no matter how much I wanted her to mean it like that. Are you much recovered from your queer turn? Oh, at some point I was going to have to stop finding people using the word queer that way funny. Today was not going to be that day, though. So I snorted. Taking it to mean something deeper, Daisy gave the ties in the back of my dress one final tug and stepped away. When I turned to face her, she was staring out the window, stiff-backed and pouting. Are you okay? Have I done something amiss? What? Daisy gestured at her writing desk, which she had closed up into a case and tucked beside her trunk. You have spent all morning behaving oddly around me, and I suspected it is due to that. No, I said. I mean, yes, but no, there's nothing wrong. She rose to face me, fists clenched and fire in her eyes. Then what, pray tell, do you find so distasteful? You call my writing good, and yet you are overcome with nerves from just reading a few paragraphs. Pause here. She recognized it because obviously she read the book 200 years later. I know it is not a ladylike pastime. I know it is not a ladylike pastime, and yet you say that you eschew such rigid roles in society, and yet you behave as if my hobby offends you. You call me friend, but share secrets with my brother that you do not disclose to me. You find my proximity uncomfortable. You shrink from my touch. You disdain to share a bed with me, sleeping against the wall or on the furthest edge. Yet you stare at me when I speak, as if I am a greater orator than any who's ever lived. You bewilder me, Samantha Franklin. I confused her. Daisy, I don't. Honestly, I don't know how to explain it. Please, try, Daisy begged, and the way she said it curled around my heart like a lover's fingers. I do not know what I want, only that I cannot bear to lose your regard over my scribbling. I swear, you haven't, I promised. I held out my hands and she gripped them immediately. It's amazing what you do. I know how fiercely you have to carve out and defend your time and your right to do it, because I read about it 200 years from now. And I think it's incredible. Then why do you recoil? Because oh, fuck. I was gonna do it. I was gonna kiss Margaret good enough. I slid my hands up her arms, cupped her shoulders, rolled up onto my tiptoes. Daisy's mouth parted in confusion, then in surprise as I leaned closer and tilted my head, then in anticipation as she understood what I meant to do. Her tongue was a pink, wet flash against her bottom lip. Her spun gold lashes fluttered as we, Daisy! Her sister called from down the hall, harsh and sudden. We startled apart like cats doused with a surprise bucket of cold water, though, with less yelling. Hasten yourself! Okay. Mark Marigold added when Daisy's only reply was a grumble. Miss Eliza seeks your opinion on the twill stuff. I threw my head back and laughed. Because, of course. Daisy's annoyance broke like a wave upon the shore. She huffed a chuckle, more amused with my amusement than the interruption, but made for the door. Okay. So we weren't talking about it. Cool. Cool. I could do not talking about it.